If your dog has ever stationed itself in one specific room and refused to leave, pressed against a doorway, blocked an entrance, returned to the same spot over and over with no visible reason, most owners call it stubbornness. Some call it a bad habit. What it sometimes is something else entirely. The behavior has a direction. The direction has a target. And the target is not always the person standing in the room. Hello, and welcome to US Icon Stories. I'm Tyler, so stay with us. Thomas Callahan had lived with Rex for 11 weeks when the home nurse's visit was scheduled. Rex came from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office K-9 retirement program, a 6-year-old German Shepherd who had worked narcotics detection for 4 years before a hip injury ended his service. Thomas had applied for him after seeing a news segment about T-retired working dogs looking for homes. He did not know much about dogs. He had a 7-month-old son named Eli and a 2-bedroom house in Mesa, Arizona, and he had thought maybe a dog would be good for the boy. Rex had been easy from the start. Quiet, deliberate, never a problem. He ate when he was fed. He slept at the foot of Eli's crib. He followed Thomas from room to room without being told to, and when Thomas put Eli down in the nursery, Rex would stand at the doorway for a moment before lying down across the threshold. Thomas had taken that as loyalty. A working dog finding his post? Then 4 days before the scheduled home visit, Rex stopped leaving the nursery. It began on a Tuesday. Rex stopped coming to the kitchen for meals. Thomas had to bring his bowl to him. When the bowl was empty, Rex did not move. He lay across the nursery threshold with his chin on his paws, facing in, eyes open. Thomas put him outside for his afternoon run. Rex ran the yard, came back to the door, and sat waiting to be let in. Once inside, he went directly back to the nursery. On Wednesday, he did the same. On Thursday, when Thomas picked Eli up for a feeding and then tried to return him to the crib, Rex stood and placed his body between Thomas and the crib. Not blocking, not growling. Just present, very large, very still, eyes tracking. Thomas moved around him. Rex repositioned. Thomas said, "Sit." Rex sat, but did not move from between Thomas and the crib. Thomas had not called the vet. He had not called the sheriff's office. He had thought the dog is protective. That is what the dog was trained for. This is what protective looks like. On Friday, Sarah arrived. Sarah Callahan was not related to Thomas. It was a coincidence of name. She had been a licensed pediatric home visiting nurse for 11 years, assigned through the county's early intervention program to provide developmental support visits for families with infants. She had been bitten twice in 11 years. The first time, a retriever mix in a studio apartment in Chandler. The second time, a shepherd cross in a house almost exactly like this one. She had needed 7 stitches in her left forearm. What she knew about dogs near infants, size correlates with risk. Blocking behavior is not play behavior. A dog that positions itself between a professional and a vulnerable infant is exhibiting resource guarding, a behavioral pattern that escalates, not resolves, under stress. Rex met her at the front door. He did not bark. He assessed her with the specific neutral attention of a working dog. A sustained gaze with no social override, no tail adjustment, no conciliation. He stepped back to allow her entry. In the nursery, when Sarah moved toward Eli in the crib, Rex was up. He placed himself between the two of them, not aggressive, not threatening, but there. Positioned. His ears forward, his weight distributed. She could not reach Eli without coming within 12 inches of the dog. She tried twice. Rex did not move. She pulled Thomas into the hallway. "I've been doing this 11 years," she said. "This dog is resource guarding your son. That escalates. And at his size, when it escalates, it does not give you time." Thomas asked, "But he has never been aggressive." "That is what everyone says," Sarah said. Before. Thomas called his neighbor Craig at 7 that evening. Rex went into Craig's backyard without resistance. The house was quieter without him. Thomas sat with Eli for the evening, feeding, and noticed the silence in a way he had not before. There was no breathing from the doorway, no weight shifting on the tile, no presence that wasn't him. He told himself it was temporary, that he would find a trainer, someone who could evaluate Rex properly. He told himself Sarah was experienced, that 11 years of home visits meant something. He told himself he had done the right thing. Eli slept. Thomas went to bed at 10:30. The old propane furnace in the basement ran on its winter cycle. The nursery, directly above the utility room, was heated first and longest. Craig's backyard fence was a standard 6-foot wood privacy fence. Rex cleared it at some point between 2 and 3 in the morning. Thomas found him at the front door at 3 in the morning, sitting. The door was still locked. Rex had not scratched. He had simply waited. Thomas opened the door and Rex walked inside without ceremony. He did not greet Thomas. He went directly down the hall, turned left, entered the nursery, and lay down beside the crib. Thomas stood in the hallway for a long moment. He thought tomorrow he would call a trainer. He would find a professional opinion that was not just a liability warning. He would handle it properly. He went to bed. At 4 in the morning, the carbon monoxide detector in the upstairs hallway activated. The detector was mounted 62 inches from the floor, standard installation height in Arizona. The nursery door had been almost fully closed. Emergency services arrived in 9 minutes. The hallway reading was 31 parts per million. Eli's nursery was 47. Eli was breathing, awake, and did not appear to be in distress. He had been sleeping more than usual for 3 days. No one had noted this as a medical indicator. The propane furnace in the basement had a cracked heat exchanger. It had been leaking into the home's HVAC system for a minimum of 4 days. The first firefighter into the nursery stopped. Rex was lying against the base of the crib, facing the door, head up, watching. Captain Daniel Reyes, retired K-9 supervisor with 18 years at Maricopa County, arrived with the 2nd Response Unit. He had been reached by a friend on dispatch who recognized Rex's case number from the retirement program. He stood in the doorway of the nursery and looked at Rex. He was in here because the concentration was highest here. He knew before any instrument in this house did. Captain Reyes had seen this once before. A narcotics canine who had retired and then spent 6 consecutive nights pressed against a specific kitchen cabinet. The owner had dismissed it as separation anxiety. The cabinet concealed a slow propane line leak. They had found it 3 months later when the kitchen caught fire. "Your dog was on post?" Captain Reyes said to Thomas. "He never left post." What carbon monoxide does inside a home is invisible. It carries no scent. It produces no visible symptom in a human being until concentration exceeds 35 parts per million. which is when dull headaches begin, when the body begins to attribute a chemical insult to tiredness or a bad night's sleep. Researchers at Colorado State University's College of Veterinary Medicine have documented behavioral changes in dogs exposed to ambient CO concentrations beginning near 10 parts per million, a threshold 3.5 times lower than where human chemistry begins to respond. A dog's olfactory system contains approximately 300 million receptor cells. A human's contains 6 million. The sensitivity differential is not a matter of attention. It is a matter of instrumentation. What Rex was responding to across those 4 days was not instinct in the way the word is usually used. It was chemistry. Specific compounds. Specific concentrations. The same olfactory system that Maricopa County had used for 4 years to find things humans could not find, redirected without training toward a threat it had no label for. The standard household carbon monoxide alarm in the Callahan home was rated to activate at 35 parts per million sustained for 30 minutes. Rex responded at or below 10 parts per million, possibly lower, and did not stop responding for 4 consecutive days. If your dog has recently refused to leave one room or has stationed itself near a specific appliance or wall without visible cause, note which heating or fuel source is in that space. The behavior has a direction. Rex came home the next afternoon. Thomas brought him in through the front door and walked him down the hall to the nursery. The room had been aired out. Eli was in his crib, awake, watching the light move across the ceiling. Rex stopped at the doorway for a moment. Then he walked in, circled the crib once, and lay down beside it in exactly the place he had lain every night for 11 weeks. Thomas sat down on the floor next to him. He said one word: "Sorry." Rex did not look at him. He was looking at Eli. Outside, the old propane furnace had been disconnected. The house was quiet in a way that was different from Thursday night. A quiet that did not require explaining. Eli's hand came through the crib slats and rested on Rex's ear. Rex did not move. What happened to Rex is not unusual. Carbon monoxide leaks in residential homes are responsible for more than 400 deaths annually in the United States and thousands more hospitalizations. The compound accumulates slowly and visibly, and at concentrations where it begins affecting a dog's behavior, most owners are receiving no signal from any standard household instrument. If your dog has been returning to one room, if it has been pressing against a wall, it is always ignored. If it has stationed itself near a basement door, a utility closet, a specific appliance, and the behavior started without a visible explanation, note the location, note the fuel source nearest to it, and test your carbon monoxide equipment. Your dog is not confused. It is not acting out. If it has been doing what Rex did, staying where the concentration was highest, placing its body where it mattered most, that behavior has a target. The target is worth finding. If what a retired search and rescue dog in rural Pennsylvania did during a 7-day ice storm, when the family's only heat source was inside a sealed room, surprised emergency responders when they finally understood it, this one will too. That story is next.